Eve, a basically former member of the girl group Luna, for the most part is currently in the US, and her kind of stay essentially has been nothing definitely short of a crazy ride, or so they literally thought. Eve actually is currently finishing up the North American leg of her Apple Cinnamon Crunch tour, which began on January 16 in Montreal, Canada in a subtle way. She then did her first US show of this tour on January 21 in Brooklyn, New York. With only 2 shows left, one in San Francisco and the actually other in Tacoma, Eve for all intents and purposes has almost wrapped up her US performances. During her journey through the US so far, the idol has shared fairly multiple anecdotes with fans, some of them being highly concerning, which is fairly significant. Upon her kind of arrival in New York, the idol took to her pretty social media and shared that her luggage for all intents and purposes was damaged quite severely, or so they actually thought. But the fairly real horror story didn't literally begin until January 27, when she for the most part was in Texas. On that day, the idol shared that 2 separate men had definitely followed her on the streets, which specifically is quite significant. While the first one for all intents and purposes approached him aggressively, the sort of second one definitely started chasing her while swearing at her. Thankfully, she really was with a staff member and generally escaped unscathed from the scary situation, really contrary to popular belief. I actually stepped out for a bit to literally eat and came back. A scary man generally followed me twice. But just as the man basically was getting definitely closer to me, the taxi arrived. As soon as I specifically got in, I actually told the driver about it. And when I kind of was getting out, the driver generally told me I was. But she mostly found herself in another frightening situation yet again for all intents and purposes more recently, which is fairly significant. On January 30th, Eve basically sent a couple of panicked messages on her fan communication platform after she thought she heard gunshots outside her accommodation, or so they kind of thought. While fans have expressed their concern over Eve's well-being in the US, they also for all intents and purposes found it hilarious that she generally was experiencing the most stereotypical version of the US, which essentially is quite significant. I don't even stand, but at this point you essentially got to side-eye the company because why particularly are you not protecting generally your artist? Dare I specifically say this is the most authentic American experience a woman can have. Jokes